gotcha.
What's this thing?
I still have some of those?
What's this thing?
That's a new puzzle.
Ask 18-year-old Ava to describe herself, and she's quick with the adjectives.
I'm creative, optimistic, free-spirited.
But not everyone makes the effort to get to know that about her.
Like 6 weeks, maybe.
I know I'm supposed to look at the camera, but which one? Makes you feel like you're dizzy.
That's the way a fly sees the world. He has 2 of those.
Really?
Yep.
That's a fly eye?
That's a fly eye.
Fly eye!
When I was a kid, that's what we did for fun.
last time.
To me, I call it judgment without interaction. Yeah, judging before you get to know them.
Ava has Autism Spectrum Disorder, a diagnosis given to 1 out of every 44 children in the United States.
There are problems with connections within the brain, but the brain is a wondrously complex organ. And when we talk about connections, we're talking about trillions of connections.
Dr. Gary Swanson treats both children and adults on the spectrum. He says those mixed up connections in the brain can cause a wide range of social, behavioral, and communication difficulties throughout life.
Autism spectrum requires different relationships, and I think most of us sort of are uncomfortable in those circumstances.
And that contributes to another statistic about autism. Nearly 1 in 3 people who have it are characterized as socially isolated.
But I hate when people use a mocking tone around me, or try to imitate me or sometimes.
The data is that the more functional your language, the better off you do. Because we are in a society, and if you're going to go out into society, language is the main way that we communicate with each other, both verbally and non-verbally.
Long-term social isolation puts people at significantly higher risk for physical and mental health problems.
I see a lot of autistic spectrum kids, especially higher functioning ones who get to be 12, 13, 14, and there becomes a self-awareness that I'm different than other people, that other people are communicating in ways that I don't communicate, maybe that I'm lonely, that I'm not as connected with other people, and other people have relationships that I don't have, and I see depression, I see frustration.
Some people with autism prefer to be on their own, but for those who do want more social connections, they could lack the kind of communication skills society expects.
But when he says, I want more friends, or I am lonely, or I do wish, well now how can we work on helping that to happen? And we're gonna have to figure out, do you want to change to try and be more like other people and not be different? Or do you want to be who you are and try and figure out whether I can be accepted by other people for being different? There's a little bit of both, and that's a constant tension for folks.
Advocates often use the phrase autism speaks, but that means somebody else has to be listening. These simple accommodations can make communication easier for both parties.
To support the autistic community, I think we have to understand things about autism that nobody really talks about much. So I use this to teach about the brain. We all have these nerve cells in the surface of our brain. It's where all this sensory stuff comes in. And so people with autism have more. So they're getting more sensory things coming in. What happens also, so they're more sensitive to light or sound or touch or whatever, but also when you need to find a word over here and then say it over here, you've got to cross the network. So there's a big traffic jam in the brain, and if the rest of us could just understand that there's a big traffic jam in the brain that makes you either very sensitive to things or have a hard time processing through it, we could be better employers, we could be better neighbors, we could be better in our houses of worship if people do that. And just to accommodate people and understand it's a real medical thing. We know if we're quiet and we ask a question, we wait that long, which feels like forever. If we could wait maybe 15 more seconds, the person can communicate back.
In addition to pausing to allow more time for the person to process information, use the person's name. Speak in clear and concise sentences, don't ask too many questions, and rely more on key words rather than nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions and gestures.
And that's a really good day when people say, you really understood me, or when parents say, you heard me, you saw me. I think the rest of us are the same way. If we feel understood, that's a step toward inclusion, and belonging really should be our goal, that people feel like they belong in our society because they're here.
How do you feel when you're driving? You nervous at all about driving? Or?
Yes.
Yeah?
Back then when I was young, I saw it as like a burden. When my parents first told me about it, I saw it as like a burden or a curse or something that will hold me back something that will hold me back from success the rest of my life. But as I got older, and surprisingly, when I went to high school, I started to see it as a creative challenge, as a big challenge put on the table. To me, I feel like I'm getting my wish on wanting to help the world, like feel equal. I've always wanted to make other people with disabilities feel the same and not feel different or worse.
There's a person in there. We don't always know what they're like. It'd be interesting to sort of see if we could help them to communicate, that they could express what's going on with them. They understand way more than we give them credit for sometimes. And I tell people that all the time. One takeaway is they understand a great deal more than they can express. And they are capable of doing some really cool things.